Well, hello YouTube, it's me, Master, and welcome back. Yeah, this is welcome back, because I have reacted to food theory before. Welcome back to a food theory reaction, and, well, this is the last reaction I'm going to be doing to all of the Theory Channel's Mystery Meat Week. So on Game Theory, they did a theory about Murder Mansion, about the grandmother and her propensity for, trying to figure out what kind of fillings were put into her meat pie. On Style Theory, they were trying to figure out how many people you could feasibly feed using Lady Gaga's meat dress, and whether you'd want to do that at all. On Film Theory, they had a video talking about just trying to figure out, the analog horror series, Vita Carnis, or living meat, where, just creatures made of pure meat just spontaneously appeared on the planet in the 30s, and trying to figure out what was going on with that. And finally, we have Food Theory's addition to all of this. What does a 10,000-year-old meatball taste like? Now, I know full on well what they're talking about here. They didn't actually find a meatball that was 10,000 years old. What they did was they actually cloned mammoth meat, and to show it off, they made this giant soccer ball-sized meatball. Just waiting for that to appear on store shelves, eh? So as always, original video is linked in the description if you haven't seen it yet for some reason. Top corner card will be linking to all of the other Mystery Meat Week reactions that I've been doing. And without further ado, let's get into this, shall we?
10,000 years ago, these giants roamed the earth. Then, tragically, the woolly mammoth went extinct. But now, after years of extensive research, we are able to bring these majestic creatures back to life.
We then use publicly available data to identify the DNA sequence in mammoth. Then we continue to grow and multiply these cells, just as would occur in a mammoth thousands and thousands of years ago.
Through the power of modern science, the world has been reintroduced to these ancient, gentle giants. And that's why we made this, the Mammoth Meatball.
The Mammoth Meatball, it's huge. I never thought I'd be eating a meatball made of mammoths.
Excuse me, what? I have so many questions.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, it's like a giant circle, isn't it? I mean, we have evidence that are like ancient ancestors in, like, would it be the Neolithic age, or would it be like before that? I don't know. I need to look up when my human ages are in what time periods. I'm forgetting, but like I know that we have records of like ancient human tribes hunting mammoths and eating them. I mean, why should they have all the fun? No, that was terrible. I'm sorry.
Hello, Internet. Welcome to Food Theory and to Mystery Meat Weekend, where our programming is purely protein. In fact, we've got a full 4-course dinner grilled up and ready to serve. Your appetizer, Film Theory and the living meat of Vita Carnis. Your side dish, Style Theory's delectable deep dive into Lady Gaga's meat dress. For dessert, we've got Grandma's oddly savory murder pies over on Game Theory, but it's here on Food Theory that we're gonna experience the weekend's main course, a wad of meat the size of a small child. And not just any meat, mind you. This giant chunky chuck is made up of none other than...
No, a mammoth meatball.
than a cloned woolly mammoth, which I gotta admit adds yet another entry to the insane list of topics I could have never imagined discussing when I started these channels. That said, nothing truly embodies the spirit of Mystery Meat Weekend quite like this giant brown ball. Sorry, I missed the memo that apparently we're cloning mammoths now. We're just wadding them up and throwing them into a big old meat glob, yeah? Like seriously, I have all the questions.
I mean, admittedly, I will say this is a much better use of DNA cloning technology of like ancient species than anything in the Jurassic Park series. I mean, even in that universe, like how did anything past like the second movie? Actually, wait. First movie is a disaster. Then the second two of Jurassic Park, they were like going back to like abandoned sites. If I remember correctly, it's Jurassic World where stuff gets getting even stupider. Yeah, I'm glad I don't live in that timeline. I'm glad we live in this timeline where we clone ancient extinct species to eat them.
How? Why? And most importantly of all, what does this thing actually taste like? I mean, when you get the internet a-buzzing about bringing prehistoric woolly mammoths back from the dead only to create something that belongs on a plate of spaghetti at the Rainforest Cafe, you know that your boy MatPat is gonna be making a video about it. So grab a knife, a fork, and...
Oh my god, okay, I'm sorry I'm pausing so much in this. That just made me think. I know, like, for our family, when we eat out, most of the time we go to like Boston Pizza because it's the, one of the closest places, good food for what you pay for, that all sort of stuff. My brother always gets spaghetti and meatballs, or at least half the time he does. It's either spaghetti and meatballs, like a burger, or a plate of nachos, or like a 4-person plate of nachos he eats all himself. Either way, the meatballs you get on that are huge. I'm just imagining a place where when you get spaghetti meatballs, you get just a singular giant meatball like the size of a soccer ball sitting on top of it. Man, that would be expensive now that I'm thinking at the price of meat right now.
Probably plenty of Pepto, because today we're taking a bite out of a 10,000-year-old meatball. Let's start with the who and how of this thing first. You see, an Australian company named Val recently revealed that they'd created a spicy meatball made entirely from extinct woolly mammoth.
I would think they had somehow utilized elephant, given that it's so close.
Many of these guys walking around nowadays to hunt and cook up. Well, that's where our good pal science comes in. You see, humans have actually found woolly mammoth carcasses frozen in ice before. And no, before you ask, these meatballs aren't made from rancid 1,000-year-old meat found buried in the ground. I mean, it's called the 5-second rule, guys, not the 5 millennia rule. No, what those carcasses contained was a small amount of DNA. DNA that contained basically all the instructions needed to build yourself a brand new woolly mammoth. Except here's the best part. We don't need to bring back the entire woolly mammoth to get our meat fix. All we need is the instructions for making one very specific protein in that woolly mammoth, myoglobin. You see, myoglobin is one of only 2 proteins in your body designed to transport and store the oxygen that you breathe in. The other one of these 2 proteins is probably the one that's a lot more familiar to you guys watching at home, hemoglobin. Well, hemoglobin is found in your blood. Myoglobin is actually found in your muscles. The stuff that you're eating when you consume a steak. So Val scoured all of the available data on woolly mammoth DNA until they found the gene that codes for making mammoth myoglobin. Then they filled in some of the missing gaps with African elephant DNA, the closest
what I said,
relative to the mammoth, and boom, just like that, you got yourself some meaty mammoth myoglobin ready to go. Talk about your fast food. Or, should I say your past food. Ba-doom-ching! I'm here all week. It's meat weekend, ladies and gentlemen. From there, the only thing missing is a host to help grow and replicate the cells. Now, natural host would be the elephant. It's the closest ancestor, so it should probably be the most receptive to getting the prehistoric myoglobin. However, just inserting man-made genes into other organisms is actually a pretty complicated process. So the animal chosen to serve as the host was actually a sheep. Yep, this jumbo ball of meat is actually the weird hybrid of sheep, elephant, and mammoth DNA all mixed together.
Wow, okay. Didn't see that coming.
Sheep are just one of the animals that we've been inserting artificial genes into for years. We've even taken the genes from jellyfish that make them bioluminesce and inserted them into sheep to get the most disturbing night.
Yeah, I heard of that, yeah.
No, you're not seeing things. Science literally made a glowing sheep. That's right.
Yeah, that is kind of a weird thing how science is like obsessed with genetically modifying the sheep. Is that just because... Okay, there are 2 reasons I could think possibly for that. One, short life cycle, so you can alter the genetics, have offspring be born or something, and then, have it grow pretty quickly. Or 2, is there just some sort of like really weird compatibility that the sheep have or something?
Right. In an episode all about how they cloned a mammoth in order to make a prehistoric meatball, the meatball is not the strangest thing that I'm talking about. The Dayglow sheep is. Humanity, man, we go to some weird places. Now, I should call out for ethical reasons, they didn't insert the gene into a baby sheep and then raise it to have mammoth meat like some sort of Frankenstein's monster. Instead, for our mammoth meatballs, they used sheep muscle cells, then inserted their mammoth DNA and then grew the cells in the lab until they had enough enough mammoth meat to form into a ball. What ended up being created was several billion muscle cells that have 99% mammoth myoglobin, and therefore should be about as close to mammoth meat as humanity has seen since the Ice Age. And according to the creators, the meatball has itself a very unusual and pungent odor. So that's something.
Super fascinating to think that adding the protein from an animal that went extinct 4,000 years ago gave it a totally unique and new aroma, something we haven't smelled as a population for a very long time.
But forget about the smell. Clearly what we all want to know is how this thing tastes. Humanity is for the first time in 4,000 years able to experience the unique flavor of mammoth. So
is it really only 4,000 years? Well, I say only. Yeah, I thought it was longer.
What is this stuff like?
After years of extensive research, the Mammoth Meatball is finally here.
Yeah? So what's the flavor?
The Mammoth Meatball, it's huge. I never thought I'd be eating a meatball made of mammoth.
What does it taste like, man?
Just stop hyping it up and tell me the goods. What's it taste like?
The creators say they haven't even tasted it. Who knows what kind of allergens could have existed thousands of years ago?
Wait, so... I can't believe this. So they didn't eat it? What happened to the whole, I never thought I'd be eating a meat?
What do you mean allergen? I mean, you got it from a sheep, or is there something here I'm not understanding? Humans used to eat this stuff!
Meatball made of mammoth, quote. If you're not gonna try it, then what's the point?
Instead, this experiment was to generate buzz around the possible environmental benefits of creating meat.
So it was all a press thing? They cloned a frickin' mammoth, and all it was a publicity stunt to raise awareness about their actual business, which is creating lab-grown meats, and no, not mammoth or dinosaur fun meats, but instead normal things like chicken and beef. Boo. Never before in all of human history has someone been so disappointed.
And the whole thing is, I would much rather eat cloned meat versus the whole, fake meat stuff. I mean, like, I've tried, samples like from burgers and stuff like that, and I will give them credit. Taste very good taste, very similar taste to actual meat burgers. And they feel rubbery. It's really weird. The texture is not right. I've had two, from two different brands. One was rubbery, the other was just too smooth. It was unnatural.
That someone is me. Come on, Val. The first rule of doing internet food science is getting that coveted shot of you tasting your unholy creation and then getting your live reaction.
That's delicious.
It's fantastic. You have to risk it to get the lab-grown biscuit, my friends. So with the scientists too scared to take the Mammoth Meatball Challenge, I guess it's up to me to answer the question that we all really want to know the answer to. What would this mystery mammoth meat actually taste like? Science be damned, I want to savor the flavor.
And how are you going to do that, Matt? From what I understand, you do not have yourself a Mammoth Meatball taste test.
So let's bust out our hypothetical fork and knife and dig in, shall we? As we just discussed, the Mammoth Meatball is made from myoglobin, and myoglobin contains red pigments called hemes. These hemes are what gives meat, like steak, its characteristic red appearance. But the hemes in myoglobin are also what contribute heavily to the meat's taste. Every animal has itself a slightly different kind of myoglobin, each given its own distinct flavor. So if we want to make a meat that tastes like mammoth meat, then we need to find our closest approximation to mammoth myoglobin. The closest living relative to the mammoth is the modern-day Asian elephant, which has smaller ears and less wrinkly skin than the African counterpart. However, the African elephant is more often used for its meat, so there's more information that we can dive into there. Now, let's just get to the elephant in the room, or I suppose the lack of an elephant in the room. You might be wondering why we haven't procured any elephant for ourselves to try after I gave Val flack for not trying their creation.
Elephants are an endangered species, and even if they weren't, it would be very expensive because elephants take a really long time to grow. So unless you wanted to do the equivalent of elephant veal, yeah, I don't think that would work.
Well, that's because elephant meat in the US is super illegal. They're a protected species due to a slew of issues ranging from their slow reproductive cycles to the ivory trade decimating entire elephant populations. In short, world governments aren't too keen on us munching on these incredibly intelligent creatures. So yet again, I am thwarted in my quest to understand what the mammoth meat would actually taste like. Come on, guys, I just want a lick of Snuffleupagus is all I'm saying. Is that so much to ask? Now, despite elephant meat sending you straight to jail here, there there are a few scientific ways of figuring this one out. For one, elephant meat is incredibly high in iron, having 46% more than beef. Elephant is also surprisingly lean, with a similar fat content to pigs. It's low in cholesterol as well. In fact, the list of health benefits of elephant meat goes on and on. Potassium, vitamin C, zinc, even more protein pound for pound than any other animal product. It's no wonder that people in Africa have been eating elephants for hundreds of years. Accounts from those who have tasted elephant meat have said that it tastes like venison, essentially just the meat of a young deer or elk. This makes a lot of sense considering both deer and elephants are herbivores that, in the wild, get a fair bit of exercise. But because of the more varied diet consisting of nuts, fruit trees, shrubs, and grass, elephant meat is actually supposed to be stronger and more complex in flavor than that of deer. Remember though that this episode is talking about mammoths and not necessarily elephants. Mammoths typically stuck to a strict diet of grass, with flowers thrown in here or there every once in a while, meaning that their meat would fall somewhere between deer and modern elephants on the robustness scale. Basically, their meat would be very gamey. So what's gamey mean? Well, gamey meats have a more earthy smell to them as well as a more pungent flavor. These are your wild game meats, like if you're eating venison, elk, or wild boar. Basically, eating mammoth would be an acquired taste. The other important factor in determining the flavor, though, is the amount of iron in the meat. As I mentioned before, mammoth is high in iron. Bison is another meat that's also high in iron levels, which gives it a taste that many people describe as earthy or minerally. So
oh, I swear this entire episode is just making me hungry. I haven't had a bison burger in so long.
So it's safe to assume that the mammoth meat would have that similar earthiness. Coupled with the fat content that's similar to a pig, you've got yourself a gamey, heavy mineral flavor that tastes a bit like pork liver, but with a texture that's similar to venison. But I gotta say, the worst part of your mammoth meat experience is gonna be trying to chew it. You see, elephants, and mammoths for that matter, get a fair amount of exercise. In general, their muscles are used quite a bit, especially to bear their massive weights as they get older. And in the food world, more exercise equals tougher meat. That's why Wagyu cows live in a stress-free environment and are constantly looked after to make sure they don't exercise all that much up until their slaughter. This allows the meat to remain as fatty and tender as possible. Mammoths weren't the nomadic creatures that we once thought they were, which means that they wouldn't constantly be walking miles upon miles, but in the wild they'd still be getting a good amount of exercise, lugging around anywhere between 4 to 10 tons of their own body.
Yeah, they also
had
very
themselves
big
a
animals.
lifespan that lasted around 3 times that of your typical cow. And since early humans had to actually hunt these things in order to feast, more often than not they'd be more likely to kill an older straggler from the herd than the younger members of the group who were staunchly defended. That meant that whatever mammoth meat humans were consuming back then, it was likely the oldest of the old, which, you guessed it, makes the meat even tougher. Imagine chowing down on a 4-inch thick slice of beef jerky that smells like minerals, but vaguely of pork. Well, that tooth-breaking experience is something along the lines of eating mammoth meat. That's why elephant meat today is often slathered with sauces, to make the eating of it a more pleasant experience than just exercising your jaw. And just to make things clear, it would be twice as bad if
Well, I mean, that's part of that's why they say discovering fire was such a big thing, because it breaks down the fibers and the cells. Well, not the cells, but it breaks down the meat so it's easier to chew. And that was why, like, our jaws are comparatively smaller than our ancient ancestors, so it was easier to get more energy while expending less energy. And they say that that's possibly why our brains started increasing in size, because they could give them more energy, all that sort of stuff.
About the trunk here, which is an appendage made out of pure muscle that's just constantly used by the mammoth for moving objects like falling trees, fighting other mammoths, and
actually, I didn't even think of that. The trunk, it would be literally pure muscle. I always thought it would be sort of like the nose, our nose, where it had some cartilage in it, but no, it's literally just, it's pure muscle.
Picking flowers. This constant use would actually render the trunk hard as a rock when it came to cooking. And even though it'd be rich in flavor, it would be the toughest jerky you'd have ever had. Nearly impossible to get down. And here, my friends, is the ultimate twist. The fact that Val made this stuff into a meatball, well, that was probably the single best way to serve a tough meat like this. You see, grinding up meat like this and presenting it in a ball form is probably the best way to take down any cut that's gonna be tough and sinewy. That said, if they wanted to truly go the extra mile here, instead of just baking it and then finishing it off with a torch, they should have actually slow cook this thing in a broth. In fact, if we were ever to widely adopt mammoth meat into our daily culinary lives, it would most likely be in a slow cooked stew or soup. The hot
I was just
liquid
thinking
would
that,
over
yeah.
time break down the collagen and connective tissue that binds the muscle fibers, thereby making it fall apart more easily. And with all the other flavors typically infused into a stew, the meatball would lose some of its pungency, its exotic smell, and overall just become much easier on your palate. In fact, this is a very popular way for people to enjoy venison and other gamey meats like rabbit nowadays, so it would make sense that mammoth meat with its similar taste profile would be enjoyed in much the same way. So is all of this just a hypothetical discussion then? Well, no, actually. You see, woolly mammoths going extinct during the Ice Age meant that some of their frozen bodies were found in incredibly good condition as recently as the 1900s. One found in Siberia was so well preserved that it actually had grass still in its mouth. Of course, humans being humans, eager to eat just about anything we come across, the meat was served up in 1901 as part of a mammoth banquet. And apparently it was a moderate hit, with guests claiming that it was, quote, agreeable, and also, quote, not much tougher than some of the meats furnished by butchers of the time. An absolutely glowing review. And so there you have it, friends. Possible lethality of an Ice Age protein notwithstanding, we now have ourselves a solid idea of what munching on a mammoth meatball would taste, feel, and smell like. So thank you all for tuning in to Theorist Meat Week, which has hopefully been easier to swallow than the mammoth meatball. If you've yet to ascend to the level of king or queen of the meats, make sure you continue onward to our film theory.
I mean, what a time to be alive. I mean, yes, the world was falling apart, but mammoth. But also the fact that they found a frozen mammoth and they ate it. Granted, this was in the early 1900s, and also I am fully aware that people ate mummies when they were discovered back in the day, so, yeah, people are stupid. I mean, I could see it. I've tried venison before. My dad has gone hunting before in the past, and he's brought back the meat. It was pretty good. It's like you fry it, not fry it up, but like cook it in the skillet with some salt and pepper. That was all you needed. It was very, very good. Just imagine what actual mammoth would taste like. Bison. Oh God, this made me so hungry. I'm so happy that that it's getting close to dinner time because it's not doing good for me right now. Original is linked in the description if you haven't seen it for some reason. Top corner cards will be linking to every other Theory Mystery Meat Week that I've done a reaction to. And I hope you guys liked. If you did, leave a like, subscribe if you have not. And don't forget that protein, eh? Goodbye.